silence, now with sparkling arpeggios, now with a sonata of Beethoven's, which, in happier days, he knew to be one of the loudest pieces of that powerful composer. Still not a sound. He gave the Broadwood two great bangs with his clenched fist. All was as still as the grave. The young barrister started to his feet. "I am stark, staring mad," he cried aloud, "and no one knows it but myself. God's worst curse has fallen on me." His fingers encountered his watch chain. Instantly he had plucked forth his watch and held it to his ear. He could hear it ticking. "I am not deaf," he said aloud. "I am only insane. My mind has quitted me for ever." He looked uneasily about the room, and gazed with lacklustre eyes at the chair in which Mr. Dickson had installed himself. The end of a cigar lay near on the fender. "No," he thought, "I don't believe that was a dream. But God knows my mind is failing rapidly. I seem to be hungry, for instance. It's probably another hallucination. Still, I might try. I shall have one more good meal. I shall go to the Cafe Royal, and may possibly be removed from there direct to the asylum." He wondered with morbid interest, as he descended the stairs, how he would first betray his terrible condition. Would he attack a waiter, or eat glass? And when he had mounted into a cab, he bade the man drive to Nichols', with a lurking fear that there was no such place. The flaring gassy entrance of the cafe speedily set his mind at rest. He was cheered besides to recognise his favourite waiter. His orders appeared to be coherent. The dinner, when it came, was quite a sensible meal, and he ate it with enjoyment. "Upon my word," he reflected, "I am about tempted to indulge a hope. Have I been hasty? Have I done what Robert Skill would have done?" Robert Skill, I need scarcely mention, was the name of the principal character in Who Put Back the Clock? It had occurred to the author as a brilliant and probable invention. To readers of a critical turn, Robert appeared scarce upon a level with his surname; but it is the difficulty of the police romance that the reader is always a man of such vastly greater ingenuity than the writer. In the eyes of his creator, however, Robert Skill was a word to conjure with. The thought braced and spurred him. What that brilliant creature would have done, Gideon would do also. This frame of mind is not uncommon. The distressed general, the baited divine, the hesitating author, decide severally to do what Napoleon, what St. Paul, what Shakespeare would have done. And there remains only the minor question, what is that? In Gideon's case, one thing was clear. Skill was a man of singular decision. He would have taken some step, whatever it was, at once, and the only step that Gideon could think of was to return to his chambers. This being achieved, all further inspiration failed him, and he stood pitifully staring at the instrument of his confusion. To touch the keys again was more than he durst venture on. Whether they had maintained their former silence, or responded with the tones of the last trump, it would have equally dethroned his resolution. It may be a practical jest, he reflected, though it seems elaborate and costly. And yet what else can it be? It must be a practical jest. And just then his eye fell upon a feature which seemed corroborative of that view, the pagoda of cigars, which Michael had erected ere he left the chambers. Why that? Reflected Gideon. It seems entirely irresponsible. And drawing near, he gingerly demolished it. A key, he thought. Why that? And why so conspicuously placed? He made the circuit of the instrument, and perceived the keyhole at the back. "Aha! This is what the key is for," said he. "They wanted me to look inside." Stranger and stranger. And with that he turned the key and raised the lid. In what antics of agony, in what fits of flighty resolution, in what collapses of despair Gideon consumed the night, it would be ungenerous to inquire too closely. That trill of tiny song with which the eaves birds of London welcome the approach of day found him limp and rumpled and bloodshot, and with a mind still vacant of resource. He rose and looked forth unrejoicingly on blinded windows, an empty street, and the grey daylight dotted with the yellow lamps. There are mornings when the city seems to awake with a sick headache. This was one of them. and still the twittering reveille of the sparrows stirred in Gideon's spirit. Day here, he thought, and I still helpless. This must come to an end. And he locked up the piano, put the key in his pocket, and set forth in quest of coffee. As he went, his mind trudged for the 100th time a certain mill road of terrors, misgivings, and regrets. To call in the police, to give up the body, to cover London with handbills describing John Dickson and Ezra Thomas, to fill the papers with paragraphs: mysterious occurrence in the Temple, Mr. Forsyth admitted to bail. This was one course, an easy course, a safe course, but not, the more he reflected on it, not a pleasant one. For was it not to publish abroad a number of singular facts about himself? A child ought to have seen through the story of those adventurers, and he had gaped and swallowed it. A barrister of the least self-respect should have refused to listen to clients who came before him in a manner so irregular, and he had listened. And oh, if he had only listened! But he had gone upon their errand, he, a barrister, uninstructed even by the shadow of a solicitor, upon an errand fit only for a private detective. And alas, and for the 100th time the blood surged to his brow, he had taken their money. No, said he, the thing is as plain as St. Paul's. I shall be dishonoured. I have smashed my career for a £5 note. Between the possibility of being hanged in all innocence and the certainty of a public and merited disgrace, no gentleman of spirit could long hesitate. After 3 gulps of that hot, snuffy, and muddy beverage that passes on the streets of London for a decoction of the coffee berry, Gideon's mind was made up. He would do without the police. He must face the other side of the dilemma, and be Robert Skill in earnest. What would Robert Skill have done? How does a gentleman dispose of a dead body honestly come by? He remembered the inimitable story of the Hunchback, reviewed its course, and dismissed it for a worthless guide. It was impossible to prop a corpse on the corner of Tottenham Court Road without arousing fatal curiosity in the bosoms of the passers-by. As for lowering it down a London chimney, the physical obstacles were insurmountable. To get it on board a train and drop it out, or on the top of an omnibus and drop it off, were equally out of the question. To get it on a yacht and drop it overboard was more conceivable, but for a man of moderate means it seemed extravagant. The hire of the yacht was in itself a consideration. The subsequent support of the whole crew, which seemed a necessary consequence, was simply not to be thought of. His uncle and the houseboat here occurred in very luminous colours to his mind. A musical composer, say of the name of Jimson, might very well suffer, like Hogarth's musician before him, from the disturbances of London. He might very well be pressed for time to finish an opera, say, a comic opera of Orange Pekoe. Orange Pekoe, music by Jimson. This young maestro, one of the most promising of our recent English school. Vigorous entrance of the drums, etc. The whole character of Jimson and his music arose in bulk before the mind of Gideon. What more likely than Jimson's arrival with the grand piano, say at Padwick, and his residence in a houseboat alone with the unfinished score of Orange Pekoe? His subsequent disappearance, leaving nothing behind but an empty piano case? It might be more difficult to account for, and yet even that was susceptible of explanation. For suppose Jimson had gone mad over a fugal passage, and had thereupon destroyed the accomplice of his infamy, and plunged into the welcome river, what end, on the whole, more probable for a modern musician? "By Jove, I'll do it!" cried Gideon. "Jimson is the boy." End of chapter 10.